Hello, everybody, and welcome to One Day Today. We are on episode 67. I'm really excited about both the guests we have with us today. We started this whole stage, this whole movement, right before, this new experience of the world. Really, I think I think it's safe to say most of the world was caught off guard by, most of the events that have transpired. And, what I'm really learning in my experience of my life is, most of life is that way. What's really the only certainty is the uncertainty. And what's been amazing in this, what's opened up for me in this space, and sharing the voices and the gifts and the stories of people from all over the world and just from all different walks of life and every creed and every color is just, you know, there's so much power when we see in our obstacles and the things that we didn't expect to happen, the things that threw us off, the accidents, the things that we could never have anticipated. When we find our strength despite that, or even because of that, we discover something so much bigger in ourselves that points us to our own purpose and it points us to our own contribution to those around us. And it's just this beautiful, actualization of, humans, how we're just like diamonds and pearls, how, under pressure is really where the possibility for us is to shine. We can really grow from the things that have held us back, who we discover in that. And it just inspires me, what's possible, when we are able to have the courage to really face what we're afraid of, face what's in the way, and despite that, grow into something that we never even knew was possible from where we were standing before. So I'm really excited to have our guests. Welcome everybody. But I think we're going to go ahead and get started because I'm really excited to have our first guest here. We have with us Robert Grigore. Robert, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Abram, and thank you for everybody for watching and listening.
Such an honor and a privilege to have you. I'm really excited and curious to hear your story. So if you're all right with it, we're going to go ahead and get started. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. And I want to say just how much I love this mission that you're on and the messaging that's behind this, the idea of unity and learning about how to just rediscover yourself and release your gifts when they come from these moments when all the pressure is on, and one of the things that our world is faced with right now is the fear of the unknown. And fear is something that I have been very accustomed with my whole life. And I'm going to start off by telling you a part of my life story where I was the most afraid, and that was on January 10th, 2014, where I was standing in a courtroom face to face with a judge, and the judge brought his hammer down. I forget what you call it. And on that day, he convicted me for participating in a riot. And I spent the next 6 months in jail. And I remember that moment when he took me, when the bailiff handcuffed me, and all I could think about in that moment as I felt the steel of the handcuffs wrapping around my wrists, I remembered thinking how ashamed my mother must be right now. And I remember feeling my shame wrapped up in those handcuffs. And as the bailiff took me back to the holding cell before they sent me off to prison, I remember my life changed in that moment forever. And this is not a story about shame, but a story of redemption and growth. It was in those moments when who I was changed. I was lucky enough that I got to spend what's called a conditional sentence, where I spent Monday through Friday, I got to be Robert Grigore, who went to work and went to school and helped his clients. And then Friday afternoon to Sunday afternoon, I was a number on a red jumpsuit. It was really the first time that I recognized and I felt what dehumanization felt like. Every time I went into the prison there, we had to strip us down to nothing and make sure that we weren't smuggling something in. And this was such a painful moment in my life. And every Friday this would happen. And I remember feeling what it's like to lose myself and to disappear into that sea of red jumpsuits. We were placed in a part of the jail that was reserved for the other more dangerous population when they were doing something really, really wrong, and it was solitary confinement. So I was stuck in this little cell for the duration of the weekend, and I remember being absolutely terrified as to what was happening and what might happen, or I didn't know what to expect. I never even had a parking ticket before, so I was really, really scared. And I remember learning something incredible about myself in that moment, where all the moments bled into the next moment, to the next moment, to the next moment, and time just sort of stopped, yet it flew by. And I remember sitting in the lotus position, reading a book on Buddhism, and I was sitting with my back against the concrete wall, and I was, getting really accustomed to that relentless fluorescent light that was just beaming down on me. And as I was sitting there in this moment, I recognized that pretty quickly I learned to adapt to this scenario, because it wasn't the first time I was in a prison. I recognized that I've been in a prison my whole life. My emotions had been a prison that arguably I was born in. From a young age, when I was a child, really little, I used to dance around in my room. I wanted to be a girl, I think. I was wearing my shirt over my head, like long hair, and I remember my favorite movie was The Little Mermaid, and I was dancing around and I just wanted to be the Little Mermaid. Yet somehow I knew that that wasn't okay in my culture, my society, in my household, and that I had to be a boy, and so I always felt that there was something wrong with me. So I didn't feel safe enough to share that with other people. So I in fact think that's the first time I've ever shared that. And so I pushed that away. Fast forward a little bit, I developed anxiety and depression well before I knew what those things were. Before I became a psychotherapist. When I was in my adolescence, 11 years old, 12 years old, I used to stand in front of my mirror totally naked, and I used to hate myself. I was overweight as a child. I was bullied because of it. And I used to just grab my body. I would beat on my breasts. Men weren't supposed to have breasts, and I was holding my fat and trying to pull it off my body. And all I could think about was how much I hated myself, how much I felt that I was worthless, how much I felt that I didn't deserve love. And I recognized that this was so painful, but I didn't know anything about it. This was my life. And so I developed this ability to look inward and to try and understand the reasons why I was in this pain. And I didn't have an answer. I just hated myself. And fast forward through my life, in my undergrad, I became very popular. It's one of the things that I wanted. I always wanted to feel like I belonged, but I never felt like I did, because I always felt that there was something wrong with me, that my feelings were a burden, that I was worthless. And I became the popular kid. I had all the parties were at my place, and I got all the ladies, and I thought this would make me happy, but it actually just made it worse. And I was, my addictions from my childhood were video games and TV and food and pornography, and then my addictions became something far worse. They became alcohol, drugs, and sex. And I got really acquainted with what it's like to feel alone. Nobody could feel my pain for me. Nobody could live in my pain. And I discovered that there was a way out. After I went to jail and I recognized that I was in a prison, I determined that, in fact, I feel like many people are in prisons. And this inspired me to think about how our world is faced with their emotional prisons and where it really comes from. When I do my work now, what I do as an EMDR therapist, I take my clients down to their roots, where everything starts from, where their anxiety starts from, where their depression starts from, and where their addictions start from, whatever it is. And we determined pretty quickly that it all began as a thought, like me, I'm worthless, I don't deserve love, my feelings are a burden. And it always stems from the parents and the beliefs that were passed down to their parents and their parents' parents, and so on and so forth. And these beliefs become the basis of how we live in our world now. They are the bars of our prison, if you will. And so when I'm thinking about how much I hated myself, I think about what I needed at the time. And what I needed at the time, my whole life, was love and compassion. And when I think about two groups of people right now, what our world is faced with is so many different groups of people that are segregated in so many different ways. And what I love about this mission here is to bring everybody together and to understand each other. And I feel like when I finally understood where my pain was coming from and I healed where my pain came from, I needed to develop empathy for myself. I fell in love with my child self, who was many years was bullied. My nickname was Short Fat with Glasses. I hated myself back then. And I learned now to love myself. And I loved, everything that I was back then. And this has become the basis of all change. When my clients go, it doesn't matter who they are, whether they be celebrities or CEOs or entrepreneurs or, a garbage worker, the need to understand and empathize with that person's story changes everything. So my clients, they empathize with their younger selves, then they empathize with their parents, and then they empathize with their grandparents and their grandparents' parents, and so on and so forth. And pretty soon, what I call a psychological family culture is eliminated. And then what stands in its place is a loving culture. And I believe that that's something that our world needs right now on a grand stage, is to fully empathize with all perspectives. No more ors, right? It's not science or religion, it's both. It's not white or black, it's both. It's not left or right, it's both. And I feel like this is what our great mission is right now, is to learn how to empathize and see everybody as deserving of love. So that's what I have for you today. And I welcome any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. So Robert, I really appreciate your vulnerability and your courage and your just acknowledge just the work you've done in discovering yourself. And I relate with so much of what you said, and so much, and I just just when what it really resonated with so many levels. I was bullied when I was younger. I was quarter black, half Jewish Italian kid, overweight, bullied for being fat, and had a victim mentality about all of it.
Mm.
And I can totally relate. And but what you said about like you literally experienced being in prison, but what you discovered in prison is that you've been in prison your whole life. Those
Yeah.
the stories that we hold on to, those concepts, those things those blocks that we put up based on what happens to us. I've really discovered a lot of those myself. I mean, that's really it's funny in a cosmic way, even because I was afraid. My experience was I was different and I didn't belong. I didn't know how I was supposed to belong. And but even with that experience, I still always deeply valued the intrinsic truth that we're all human, that we are
Mhm.
all cut from the same cloth, that we all have the same beautiful possibilities in us. And I would be afraid to stand in that truth. I would be afraid to share about that. And I was like afraid that people wouldn't approve, that they wouldn't understand. Even to this day, I've been afraid. I'm starting this movement. I'm starting a global holiday, and you're like, wait, what? Like, what? It's like I feel it's always this fear that I'm going to occur as this crazy hippie that just wants everyone to hold hands and sing kumbaya. In one hand, that does sound nice, but that's not. It's a little oversimplification of what I'm out to do, what this vision is. But I want to what you had there's so many things you said I feel like we could talk for hours about, but one question and one thought that comes to mind is, what do we say or what do we do, like how do we invite people to discover themselves? How do we see, like, how do we, like, the undistinguished ego, the undistinguished, like, we all ultimately, in the way I see it, we all want to love and be loved. We all want the same thing. We want our families to be well. We want to be well. We want our communities to be well. But how do we reach the people, the undistinguished ego, the undistinguished, marinating in people in their own suffering, the people who are still in prison?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we invite people to just choose to step away from that prison, that they can actually remove those bars as much as they put them up?
It's a great question. And where my mind, thank you for sharing, by the way, what you've been through. That's really important. I think I'm going to circle back to that for a second, because I think it's going to come up in a minute. But the thing about prison, there's been studies on animals in captivity for generations, and we as human animals are animals. And, one of the things that happens is that some animals, some people, they quickly adapt to that lifestyle, and that's just their norm, and they don't want to leave. They get very comfortable in prison. And then you get the people that are banging on the doors trying to get out, right? And so those people that are banging on the bars trying to get out, those are the people that are more likely to listen. And to answer your question as to how to get them to look within, how to begin changing the story that they've been told in their lives, it's something that is, I think, always begins with two things. I don't think we can ever tell anybody what to believe or what to do. The number one thing that we can do is to listen. When they're ready to talk, we need to hear them. And the other thing is to do what you're doing right now, what you're having me do, what you'll have other people do, is to share your own story. When you share your story, what you've discovered, it gives other people the opportunity to do that for themselves. And without there being a pitch, you have to learn how to love. I think it really needs to be, this is what I've learned, this is what I've discovered. And because we're all cut from the same cloth, what you'll find is that something is going to resonate with that other person, because we are faced with human issues for the most part. When it all comes down to it, it's a human struggle that we're in. So something's going to resonate. It's going to spark a conversation, and it's something at that point to continue talking. And really, ultimately, when you come down to anything in life, there's only two choices. You either choose love or you choose fear.
Absolutely. Reminds me of a saying. Goes something like, fear knocked at the door and love answered, and nobody was there. And they can't coexist.
That is it. That's it right there. Yeah. You meet somebody with love, regardless of who they are, where they're coming from. Ultimately, I believe that we're really all part of the same thing. And if I can love that person who's in fear, then they get the experience of love.
Right.
And then the fear is not so bad and it begins to dissolve. Ultimately, fear can't exist when there's love.
Right. Absolutely. On the note of fear, what I've really come to discover is, one, fear. I haven't found one. Maybe there's an exception. I have yet to find a fear. Like, there's always a lie at the root of a fear.
Yeah.
There's something we're telling ourselves, and I'm telling myself when I'm afraid, that is causing me to follow that. It's like obviously there's survival fear. Somebody holds a gun to you. There's an impulse, but fear, ultimately, like the things that we fear in our day-to-day life, our fear of failure, fear of success, the fear of even being alive, fear of being. It's like fear is always clouded as something, and it's and ultimately what I've discovered, and it's the opposite of what it seems like. Fear has become a compass for what needs to be faced next, because in overcoming that, the discovering the lie in each fear, the one that feels the most afraid, that makes us the most afraid, that makes us the most restricted, is what has the most opportunity for growth and for transformation.
You're exactly right, and I gotta say that you'll notice that my name down there is the celebrity savior, and it began to occur that in my work I started getting some celebrities to come and see me, and at the first I was really nervous because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not a celebrity, I don't know how to handle this, and I discovered that it turns out they have the same fears that I did, and because they're human fears. And so what happens when, regardless of who's in front of me, when I ask the question, so what are you most afraid of? And the person tells me honestly, we can bust through that in minutes. And then that fear is gone forever. Because once that fear is, lifted, the veil of that fear is lifted, as you're putting it, suddenly you notice that the fear really has nothing to hang on. In fact, it's probably a story that was passed down from your parents in some way, or their parents, and the generations have passed down this culture of this fear, that, for example, one of mine was that you had to struggle to survive, to struggle to work, and money is scarce and stuff like that. And so I had to work through those types of fears. And it ultimately come to the same understanding that, no, I am worthy of love. No, I'm capable. No, I can do anything that I really want to. And, it usually I can't do it on my own, but people are there to help me because they want to help me. They love me, and so I'm smiling because it's such a gift to really understand how beautiful everybody really is and how just incredible each person's gifts really are that's inside of them.
Absolutely. I think it's so powerful. I acknowledge just the light and the love that you are, because it's really it's really contagious. It's the fact that you've discovered it for yourself, and that you choose to spend your time to unlock that for others, for them to discover their fears and discover and to be unconstrained by what's held them back in the past and what and that's a beautiful thing. And I just really appreciate you being with us. We're gonna check back in with you in just a little bit. I want to invite our second guest, but thank you so much for just being here and just sharing your story and just your insight and just very powerful who you are and who you're being, and it's inspiring. So just thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Abram. And I'm going to take what you said. My love is contagious as just, a new tagline. It's so beautiful. It's definitely the kind of contagious I want to be these days. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. It's been an honor. We'll check back with you in just a little bit, Robert. All right. Thank you again, Robert. And to everyone who's tuned in, thank you for being with us. I want to take this opportunity to invite you to share your story on this virtual stage. It's why we're here. We want you to share your gift, your genius. You have something that none of us have, and something that enriches and contributes to us all. What you have, what you've been through, what you've experienced in your life is something that we all need to hear, but somebody needs to hear what you have to share, like right now. Like what you're experiencing and what you've experienced is the light in somebody else's darkness. The dark night of the soul we experience. The way out of our dark night of the soul is when we see others who have experienced that and overcome that and had the courage to do it. So I want to invite you. Maybe I'm a little selfish. I want to receive your gift, but I also want to share it with everybody. And that's part of our mission. That's what we're doing here at One Day, is we are bringing you and me and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. That's why we're here. That's one story at a time. Now I would like to welcome our second guest. We have Dan Nzinga. Welcome, Dan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. I really appreciate the mission you are on as well. And I appreciate hearing the story of the first guest, the celebrity savior. That was really moving and touching. So, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am really excited to have you as well, Dan. So I'm going to hop right to it and say, Dan, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So one thing I realized, or I've been present to for the last couple of days, or even before, and what led me to, I don't want to say my genius, but led me to a lot of discoveries in life, is that life is so precise. Life is so detailed. The timing has to be just right for for everything to have happened. So everything bad has ever happened in life, everything good you have in your life is given to you by everything bad that's ever happened, not just in your life, but in your parents' life and everything. The timing has to be perfect. So much so that, today I was telling my wife that if the Holocaust hadn't happened, which is something bad, my son wouldn't exist. And like, how how did you make that connection? Because of timing is so precise. And the connection was actually pretty simple, because after the Holocaust, there were a certain amount of Jews or people from that area that went to different parts of the world. They asked, where do you guys want to go? And some went to the island of Haiti. And this is like in the late 40s, going into the 50s, and started. And then one of them actually impregnated my grandmother to have my daughter, to have my mom. If that never happened, and I always thought, well, hey, I would have been born anyways. But technically, not really, because all of us, we're like one out of a million that actually get to that egg at that right time. I mean, if this happens the next day, you're not in it. So I mean, it's just so detailed and everything. So I'm not saying that I'm thankful for everything bad, but I can acknowledge that even when I'm going through a bad situation now, it's going to have a positive effect in the future. And that just helps me to be grateful. So one bad situation that I was in, I'm starting my story. Here I am, and I'm in this makeshift. This is after the earthquake in 2010. There was a bad earthquake that happened in Haiti. 250 people, 1,000 people died. 250,000 people died. It was a 58-second earthquake, And it was really devastating. Over 1 million people were made homeless on the spot. Where the city where I grew up in, 50% of the homes had gone down, or the buildings have gone down. So, a total mess. I was living in the States at the time, but I was lucky enough to go down to be a translator to help a group of doctors with the recovery, with people that, because hospitals were down too, and people were still stuck under rubble. A really, crazy situation. I'm watching it on the news, and then I get an opportunity because all the airplanes were shut down, airports were shut down. So I got a special opportunity to go as a translator with over 30 different doctors and nurses, and there was a couple of us translators there. And next thing I know, I find myself in a situation where the nurse is like, how old is this baby? And there's this baby that comes, and the baby's about, maybe 12 months, 15 months. And I'm here translating for these doctors, and I'm getting emotional because at the time I have a daughter that's about the same age. And you have seen a baby with a broken arm who hasn't gotten treatment, or maybe got treatment the first day. And then it's been a lot of people are coming back to get their bandages changed. And we just made a makeshift hospital out of this church, moving the benches around. And I'm right in the middle of people having surgery. I mean, I saw they cut this woman's stomach open, pull out a baby. I mean, because she was going through seizures. I mean, just Civil War type of hell that I'm in, and I'm here translating. And I just remember getting to a moment where I'm like, wow, this is just too much, because at the door, at the entrance, I mean, there's really no walls. This is like a church where you can actually just see through. There's really no walls, but it's a large enough space that we could have created they put the benches to divide the rooms so people come. There's like a waiting area. And then there's this, and the nurses had to mark on people's bodies what they had or what they're coming for. So the next people, they had it all organized in a way. And it was just so chaotic. People kept on breaking and fighting to get treatment. And every time, like, there's okay, we're going to see the next person. There was no line. There was just a crowd of people, and about 3 or 4 guys at the door just trying to hold the line and holding people. And then whenever they let in, and then someone's trying to fight in, people just fighting in. Just totally, total chaos, and it just caused me to break down. Like, especially when I saw the baby, and then it was like, I just can't do this. Like, this is like, I'm thinking of my daughter who's back in the States, and she's crying. I'm trying to put this thermometer under her armpit, and and she's like scared of my little device, and the mother's there too, crying. It just emotional, bad, just terrible situation, I haven't, and then right then and there, when I'm like, everything just happening so fast. And to see this doctor saying, look, we're gonna have to cut your son's leg off. And he's like, no, please, mom, don't cut my leg off. And the mom's like, no, I can't do that. And she's like, well, the kid's gonna die because whatever he has infected is going to have, like, just terrible stuff. Like, we gotta amputate his leg now. And just making these split decisions and being in a hellish situation was really like traumatizing for me. But out of this whole bad situation, something good still came out of it. So as I walked out of the church, and I saw that, there was about 14,000 people that were on the land. So this is like my family's property back in Haiti, and a lot of people just came on it, and there's making tents and making it with sheets and stuff like that. And that was a whole nother crisis right there. Even the people that weren't hurt were like, there's no sanitation, no food, no nothing, just a piece of land, and everyone's just on it. And it's, that's how you form a camp. It's like a survivor camp. And the first 2 weeks, there's no leadership, there's no anything, there's no who's in charge. Everyone's trying to find their own, wives that lost their husband, trying to make arrangements, husband trying to pull their wives out of rubble, people trying to, see what's going to happen. It's just crazy. Even the president of the country is like, I lost my home too, So it's, I don't mean to laugh, because it's really, was really a dire, bad situation that I was like, I don't really want to be in this situation. Like, what did I sign up for? And I remember coming back and just looking at the chaos and saying, okay, I want to contribute, but being right there, watching blood and gore is like maybe not my best skill, my best ability. So let me help the security. Let me try to put order in the front. And so the next morning, I organized a couple guys. We said, we're going to put some benches in a distance, and people got to sit on the bench to come in. Of course, no one's going to listen to me. These people are fighting for their lives, right? So we come up the next morning, and there's a crowd of people, and there's this old lady got pushed aside. Like, if basically you got to be strong. And the men, some of them were there fighting for their relatives that were hurt and trying to fight in the line. And there was no line, really, just a crowd of people just pushing and waiting to get in. If I don't know if anybody ever been in that kind of situation. And so I just made the rule. I said, guys, no matter what happens, we're going to just tell them that we're only going to let people in that are sitting on those benches over there. And each bench could probably take about 50 people. So 3 long benches, it was about 150 people. The first day, they only saw like 50 people. It was so chaotic. The doctors were only able to really treat and prescribe medicine to about 50 people because it was just so like chaotic. And the doctors kept on coming, like stopping what he was doing. Hey guys, stop here, stop the fighting up here. It was just like, oh, just chaos. So the second day though, halfway through the day, the doctor's like, what's going on? Why? It's like, is there less people? Oh no, we got this under control. And so in the beginning, the lady that got pushed over, I said, when I made the announcement, well, she ran to the bench. That was her only hope. And then when they say, okay, let people in, I told one of the guys, two of the security guys, go escort that lady to bring her in. That's the only person we let in. And then people started to go and sit on the bench. And then every time somebody came in, everybody that was fighting in the front started realizing, you're not getting in. I'm like, you are not getting in here. We're going to have order until you go sit on that bench and make a line. And something as simple as making a line that we take for granted in developed countries, but making a line can save lives. Like something that simple, because just making a line creates order, less fighting, less pushing, and the doctor gets to treat more people. So long story short, they were able to treat the second day 200 people from 50, and then 250 the next day to 300 people. So at the end, even though we weren't doctors, but our contribution helped save so many lives just because the doctors were able to do their job. That taught me that having structure and order is as important as being a doctor because the doctor cannot do his job without structure and order. So long story short, I ended up staying. I went to go for a week to help translate. I ended up staying for 2.5 years, helping the people in the camp, organizing, ordering, that's, doing all that stuff. So for what I discovered from this experience, and I remember specifically, my dad was actually back in the States, and I was like, look, we need supplies, we need this, we need that, just talking about all the stuff that we needed. It's probably a month later where we have structured, security, digging holes for sanitation, we're managing, but there's so much things that we need. And my dad helped me realize something. He said, we don't have a resource problem. You have a people problem. There's so many resources, and it's true. That first year, those billions of dollars, over $5 billion that was spent just in that area, but all was pretty much wasted. And so much money wasted because it's not the resource that's the problem. It's the people. It's how we're functioning. So then it got me to think, and I based the whole camp program was on, okay, we need to get organized. So anything let's not worry about all this other stuff. Let's just worry about organizing. If anything is disorganized, we're going to try to be organized with it. That's the main thing. Secondly, we're going to work to be, we're going to communicate better. So my whole program was based on 4 principles: communication, organization, being responsible, and having excellence. We say we don't care about the food. The food is just to help us practice being these things. And we had one of the best camps. And I brought a transformation in my life, bringing it back to the States. And I was able to do all kind of great things in my life. Started writing books. Started, every company I worked for, I was promoted easily. Higher in sales and everything. And I found that CORE, core, communication, organization, responsibility, and excellence, became what I got out of the earthquake. We get out of what I got out of something negative, which has been so many tools. And that's why I created a coaching program, a whole educational program based on that concept that was able to allow me to, write books. And, I'm happy to say that my last one is just come out. And this is some of the different books, not to brag, but you can check me out online, DanNzinga.com. But my whole message is life is so precise, life is so detailed that everything good that we have in life, we've gotten from everything bad that's ever happened. And I say that in a way to realize that we're all connected. Every single one of us is really connected. And there is a way out of negativity, out of hell, into the future. So no matter what has happened in the past, is giving us everything we have now, and we can always look for the future. So Core, CORE. That's my program. Check it out. That's what I have to share. I don't want to talk too long, but that's my story. And so that's what I have. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dan. That's quite a story. That's amazing that you were amongst that for
2.5 years.
years you were in Haiti. That's amazing. That sounds like first of all, like that was a beautiful story, your share, and you're just pointing to that. Even the things that are bad, the bad things that happen to us and to people around us, their life still goes on. There's still beauty that it allows to happen, even when there's things that are bad. And it's sometimes it's a hard lesson to learn, but that's kind of one of the things in life. And what you're kind of pointing me to reminded me of a quote, but Mr. Rogers. I'm gonna share here. He was talking about. Here we go. He says, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would always say to me, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping." To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I'm always comforted by realizing that there are still so many helpers, so many caring people in the world. And it made me think of you. You're one of those helpers, and I think that's
and honestly, that's one of the best fulfilling moments. I remember that year was just like we were doing so much great things, just organizing. The helpers were able to help. I'm not saying we were grateful for the disaster, but it gave us so much unit, so much things to connect. I had a friend who lost 7 family members in that one day. He lost 7 brothers. I knew him. I grew up with him. And he's like, all of them, he had a restaurant and his business, because he had a restaurant. He had his whole business went down with all his family members. Can you imagine the mental thing? And now when he's like, okay, you know what? Let me just help people. Let me just focus on helping. That's what they need, that to help. And so, a lot of times it's we just have to realize that we're all connected, and even the bad things give us who we are. And so we can appreciate that too. And that allows for forgiveness and love. Yeah. It's easier to love and forgive when I think, you know what, this has to have happened for me to have this. And so I'm happy for that.
Right. No, that's really powerful. And it's, what you're pointing to, what you're talking about, like the chaos and how you saw your role as kind of providing order. Where there was chaos was where you were. And it's like, and that's like it's like a beautiful thing. And I feel like it's kind of part of, there's a book, it's a classic, Man's Search for Meaning, but it's about the Holocaust and a survivor talking about man's search for meaning. But what you're kind of reminding me of, and it's like, this is kind of what I'm seeing, is like just how chaos is kind of comes full circle with everything you've been saying, because chaos
is actually very detailed and timely, and and everything plays into it, and it's almost mind blowing.
Yeah,
that my son wouldn't have been here if I didn't make all the mistakes I made in my life.
Right,
like he wouldn't exist.
right. That's the thing, and that's what's like. It boggles the mind when you think about it, but it's like without chaos, you can't have order, you can't have opportunity, it's like, and that's the thing, is like there's chaos, there's always chaos, but it's like it is part of what gives our life meaning. It gives our life purpose. Is like when there's chaos, when there's disaster, how do we respond? And it's like, and it's like, and that's what, like, we see the beauty in humanity. We see the beauty in ourselves. We see the beauty in each other. It's like things are going wrong. Nobody wanted this to happen, but despite it happening, we're coming together and we're creating something beautiful out of it. And it's like that's kind of like the human. That's like a power humans have. Is like we can actually face chaos. Like look at it face on and be like, I see you, and I'm not gonna let you surmount to. It's like we can create order in chaos. We can create beauty in from ugliness. We can create, there's so much we can create love from fear, and it's like the opposite invites, like when something bad happens, it invites an opportunity to fill it with the opposite.
Exactly. There's really no problems in the world. The problems that we're making them problems in our head. They're just opportunities to display who we say we want to be in the world. If I want to be a loving person in every situation, even my job is an opportunity for me to display that. It's not, oh, I got to go do this. No, I get to go and be who I said I want to be.
Right.
And that every day is a game of like, let's see how well I can perform of who I say I want to be. Mm-hmm. My authentic self is who I say I want to be, not the one that's lazy. That's that's my inauthentic self. Because that's not the one I want to be, Yeah. And I get to do that even if I mess up today. Tomorrow I get to come back and be a better version of myself, or keep trying to be as good as I can. And so that's what I've learned from chaos, from disorder, from all these things, is that sometimes maybe we need that so we can perform. Michael Jordan needed all those guys against him trying to beat him so he can be the best he can be. If they just gave him the ball and said, go play, and he had no one to play against, he wouldn't have been that great. So the goal, you never make it. He's not going to make it. It makes you. That thing makes you. It creates you. So you never actually make the dream. The program might call have this dream work, and it's about people chasing their dreams and going after their dreams. And that's the whole concept, is that, hopefully you have a dream that's big enough that you never quite get there because it's so big, that you're pushing, but you look what you've done along the way. I can argue that Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Jesus, I think I never really got their full dream accomplished. Right. It's still in the works. Mm-hmm. We're still waiting for it, but look what you did. Mother Teresa never ended poverty. But you got to go for it, and you got to do it because what's happening in the process is what's the beautiful. The game is in the game, not in the end. The beauty is in the game. The game is meant to be played, not necessarily won.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's, you pointed me to. Those are some of my heroes. Visionaries. Just what you're talking. Gandhi, King, Jesus, and but to your point of what you're saying, it's like, it's the power of our word, and a vision is, when we declare a vision, it becomes real for ourselves and for our environment, for people around us. And, one of my mentors told me, Martin Luther King didn't say, I have a plan, he said, I have a dream. And it's like, if he said I had it's like, he didn't, like Kennedy didn't say we're going to the moon and I'm going to be there at NASA working out the mathematic formulas tomorrow morning. It's like a vision is real because we, like you're saying, who we say we are. What do we see? It's like, it's standing in that future. And that's what all three of those, that's what Gandhi, that's what King, that's what Jesus all said. They spoke into existence a future that from the senses perspective wasn't here yet, but they're there. And it's like, but that's what makes it real. That's how, and that's
and they get to be it every day. They get to be that person. They get to be that thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to bring Robert back into the mix here. Welcome back, Robert. Long time no see. I want to give you an opportunity to chime in here and kind of give you two an opportunity to share how you received each other's shares. Oh, I think you're muted there, Robert. I hear you. Oh, there you
That's
go.
my fault. Can you hear me now?
Yep, hear you now.
I muted my mic, so I didn't make any sound. Anyway, Dan, man, your story was so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I literally felt like I was there, and I could just feel the trauma originally of how awful that scenario was, and what I really gathered. One of the core principles of of core is other people. That without other people, you can't have any of this. Like, we have to work together, right? And just like Michael Jordan had people to play against, and we need other people to make this our realities real.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing your story too. As I said earlier, it was really moving, and we do need therapy. We need there's a lot of things that happen in our lives, a lot of trauma. We all end up with issues, and they don't have to define the future. They can define the present, and you're like, you know what? I went through this to get here. Now what am I gonna do now to get where, what am I gonna say 2 years from now?
Yeah.
And you have time to create that. So I really appreciated that.
I appreciate that. So, I often say that to people, that I believe that our, what we're here to accomplish and what we can create is not defined when we're in specifically the issue. A lot of people have the belief, as Abram, you mentioned that you experienced bullying, and you were defined by, they're looking for where you belong. And I think that our deepest missions and our greatest accomplishments happen after we, heal from that trauma. Something good comes from the pain. And, too many people are stuck in the pain. We have to get them out of the pain so they can look back on the pain and say, wow, look at where I came from. That's amazing that I accomplished that. And if you can do it right in the middle of it, like you have, it actually, I think that's really where we all start in our own stories, is we're in the pain, and that from that pressure, we create the diamond that is our lives.
Absolutely. Oh, and like, to that point, it's like, and this is how I see, I'm a career musician, but what I see the function of art, but also but what you're kind of explaining is the function of when we can see our pain but not be our pain. It's like, and that's what art does. It's like, it's taking the story, it's like processing the pain, the suffering that we've had in our lives, and it's like putting it on the canvas, putting it in the song, putting it in the story, and like sharing it. But it's like my what really made me a musician, like really inspired me, was the blues. Like, blues is one of the purest art forms, because like out of some of the worst like social circumstances, in humanity, people are creating the most beautiful music out of the most ugly circumstances. And it's just like, but you'll hear like they're singing like, my baby left me, or whatever they're singing about. It's like they're singing about their struggle, but they're empowered while they're singing about it. And it's like, when we can actually see it, put it out there, and like rotate, like, here's what it looks like over here, here's what it looks like, but it's like we can actually process our pain separate from ourselves. And I think that's a magic power, I feel like, humans, that we have, that we can actually express and be separate from our pain, and still have it, and still own it, and still be healed from it, but it not have power over us.
Yeah.
And other people are able to share in that emotion. People who never experience that can feel the emotion. Because at the end of the day, we all have the same emotions. We don't have the same situations, but I can sympathize. I can understand somebody who, just lost his family, or even I've never lost mine, because it's the same. It's a sense of loss. You can understand that, so.
Can I bring some neuroscience into this?
Please.
Well, we've got something in our brain called mirror neurons. When we are experiencing, seeing somebody else's pain, we can feel it. That's the basis of our empathy, that we can feel somebody else's pain. And when you're talking about art, I was also been a musician myself, and I love helping musicians and artists, because one of the beautiful things, and actually I think we're all artists in our own way, that's just me, but one of the beautiful things that we do is, you know, nobody's art is incredible on its own. Like, it's shared. Other people experience it. You know, when you feel the blues and you hear "My baby left me," you're empowered because the singer and the musician's empowered. And so even though it's a sad experience, you know, the song's about something sad, you actually feel okay with it because somebody else is seemingly okay with it, and so it becomes empowering for that person too. So again, people, it's all about us, we the people.
Beautiful. Yes, it's so powerful. Well, before we close, I want to give any of you have any last words you'd like to share, any last pieces of wisdom or inquiries or anything to contribute? This has been I could talk to you guys for a long time, so this has been a great conversation.
I just want to say, you know, thank you for having me on the show. Anybody who listened and want to, and I just believe that life is what we created. In the future, we can always move forward and do that. And so, you know, check me out. Anybody who's listening at daninzinga.com, and let's get connected. Let's connect with humanity.
I love that too. I'll share something similar. Is that you know, this is one conversation of so many conversations that we need to have. And if you have been if you found this enjoyable and it spoke to you, I encourage you, you know, to like what Abram's doing and Dan, and you can find me on Instagram at The Celebrity Savior. And I love to chat, and you know, let's continue the conversation.
Thank you both so much. I'm really just I am inspired by both of you, just who you are, and you know what you're causing in the world, and just the support and love and that you are, and that it's you. I feel encouraged just knowing that you guys being you is just every day, and you know, whether you're at the gas station, whether you're at the store, that you're contributing, and you are sharing, and you're giving people a space of love, and I think it's you are being the change that I love to see in the world. So I really just appreciate, and I'm honored to have both of you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and thank you all at home for tuning in with us. I really just want to again invite you to share your gift on this stage. This is why we're here. It's really for you to hold a mirror up to us all, because you have something that is in us all, that you have something to teach us, that we all can be beneficial towards us all, and can contribute and enrich us all, and teach us something that we haven't been able to see until you shared it. So that's an open invitation, and you know, that's ultimately what our vision here at One Day is humanity rising in a connected world, with each person's unique contributions being valued and magnified through a higher level of collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. And that's what we're doing. I love you all. Be safe, be well, and happy Hanukkah. And as always, we'll see you next week. And one day is today. Take care, everybody. Peace.